Yes.
Allow me to explain something to you, Jonathan Martin, my co-host of UnqualifiedGamers.com. As this is our 89th podcast episode, you wearing a Minnesota Vikings hat.
Well, no, hang on. I can.
For our YouTube audience is useless, almost as useless as, dare I say, and I do, the Minnesota Vikings.
Listen, it's been a bad year so far. It's going to continue to be a very bad year.
On a scale of 1,
and it makes me sad. Or I'm a little sad about it. Yes.
Do you actually care? Sad. Does anyone literally actually care?
No, I legitimately do. I love the Vikings and I love football, and it has been a sad year. It's been very sad.
Do you know what I don't care about? I'll give you a hint.
Football?
It's football, and it's also the Vikings. That's double myopic, mitosis, mitochondria.
So, as a Green Bay fan, which I know you are, it doesn't make any sense to me that you wouldn't care about the Vikings at all, as they have a direct correlation to your division. I mean, they they are important to your team.
I specifically went out to a bar to watch the Packers-Vikings quote-unquote game.
Yeah, look, so did I.
Yeah,
I really want to talk about that.
If you're watching this on YouTube, you'll see the air quotes. Because, boy, it didn't seem like so much of a game as it seemed like, I don't know, not that. It was rather one-sided.
Yeah, it wasn't very good.
It wasn't very good. It was not entertaining. But
my Vikings didn't show up.
What? Who didn't?
My Vikings. They did not show up.
I don't know who they are. Do you know what is entertaining? It's episode 89.
It's certainly not you.
It's episode 89 of Unqualified Gamers, a video game podcast in which I, Cody Goff, talk about video games.
I don't normally talk about them.
What do you talk about? About what do you talk? Revise that sentence, or question, as it were, to not end it in a preposition, but continue.
What?
Do you know what you're going to be for Halloween yet?
You know what? I have to work, so I'm probably going to be a pharmacist. Oh, it's kind of, that it's a real bummer. It's a bummer for me because we've already got a costume picked out for Max, so it's the first Halloween, and I love Halloween, and it's going to be Max's first Halloween, and he's going to come in and visit me in his costume. But I don't get to spend the evening with him in his costume. But it's okay. Years down the road, we'll go trick-or-treating together. It'll be great.
It'll be adorable. When I was in second-ish grade, I dressed as probably Jean-Luc Picard because of my lack of hair, obviously. And my dad dressed as a Klingon. So perhaps one day you will be a Klingon and your child will be a Starfleet.
A Starfleet?
So before we talk about
stars.
Before we talk about video games, if you're a newcomer to this podcast, which I don't know how you could be because we don't advertise, thus you're probably a legacy listener. But if you're new, John and I like to talk about our lives and pretend that we're human beings outside of the 8 to 16-bit realm, because I guess other realms don't exist anymore. I'm just going to drop tokens in my hand. These are tokens from Emporium Arcade Bar, by the way. I'm dropping in my hand dramatically, like I'm Two-Face or something. I'm going to do this while you tell me about your undoubtedly mundane and atrocious weekend.
Two-Face literally has one coin, and he flips it. He does not drop coins in his hand. In fact, nobody does that. No, that's not a thing people do.
But they would if they had multiple coins. What you're not seeming to understand is that if Two-Face were Six-Face, then he would have 3 coins, as I do now, 2 for each face. For 6 divided by 3 is 2. And that is my logic for the day. How are you?
I will be honest. The idea of Six-Face is actually kind of awesome, but nothing else that you're saying is making any sense.
It doesn't matter. Tell me about your weekend, Jonathan.
The weekend was full of work, and that was it. That was It was kind of literally
So,
all.
listener, if you're
all I
new to
did.
this podcast, John doesn't do things on weekends.
I do, except I will talk about my upcoming weekend because that'll be a bunch of fun.
It's not what I asked about.
I had to work 2 weekends in a row in preparation for the coming 2 weekends. So this first weekend, which you'll hear about on next week's podcast, we'll go ahead and tease that now. I am going to be in a wedding in Chicago, actually. So the whole family is caravanning down to the Chicago area. I don't think it's in Chicago. Not in Chicago. It's in Downers Grove, basically, Oakdale area, that mall. So the whole family is caravanning down. Max is getting dropped off at Grandma and Grandpa's in Rockford, and then we are going into Oakbrook to go be in a wedding. We're both in the wedding. So that's going to be my weekend this weekend. And then next weekend, Casey is in another wedding in Washington, D.C., and I am hosting a daddy daycare the entire weekend by myself. And I am terrified.
Why are you terrified?
Because I have not taken care of the boy by myself for that long before.
Interesting. Did I tell you I saw your grandma last time I was in Rockford?
I mean, Rockford's like 3 square miles, so that's not surprising.
Yeah, saw her at a brunch place, and I was like, I'm 99% sure that's John Martin's grandma, because I have known you since we were 8.
I thought you just said sorry to brunch place. Which
What?
I thought that you just said so we were at a brunch place. To me it sounded like sorry about your brunch place. It doesn't matter.
Anyways, we exited, and I walked past her table and made eye contact, and she was like, hey, she totally recognized me. And I was like, that's cool. And I recognized her, and we chatted a little bit, and it was wonderful.
You were the tall dude.
She's very pleasant.
Everybody recognizes you. You're the tall dude.
I guess. And so that happened. But I was going to say, if you were coming to Chicago proper and you were not planning on telling me, I would be furious. But the suburbs are a different story.
I would tell you if I had any spare time in which I was coming to Chicago.
No, even if you didn't have spare time.
Actually, that's true, but I just told you now, so...
No, that's fair. But what I'm saying is, if you were anywhere in the city proper for literally any reason, I would come get you.
So you could actually still come and visit us in the Oakbrook area at some point.
How?
I don't know. I don't know how stuff works in Chicago. I'm not from there.
I don't have a car or a burning desire to see your stupid face in person ever. So there's that.
I mean, I thought public transportation was like the thing there.
I mean, I can Metra out there. I am so glad we're talking about the logistics of me visiting you in the suburbs on this episode of Unqualified Gamers, a video game podcast.
Oh, you are so hard to deal with. What did
you
do?
See how I brought that back around?
What did you do this weekend?
I don't remember. When do I ever remember? Literally.
I mean, hang on. High school party, dates.
That's generally my life, right? What, like hanging out with 19-year-old? I'm literally opening the calendar on my phone right now to remember, because I don't remember what I did any weekend ever.
Haunted hayride.
Apparently, I went to Dairy Queen Saturday. Don't remember
why.
Why.
On your phone? Like, what, was that scheduled? Was that in your calendar?
All right, here's
a blizzard.
Here's how I operate. All right,
Saturday.
All right, Foursquare split into 2 apps, and one is called Swarm. Swarm is the check-in app, all right? So I have a service set up called If This Then That. It's ifttt.com. When I check into Swarm, if I check into Swarm, then it posts an event on my Google Calendar. So in order for me to remember where I've been, I check in everywhere I can, and then that saves it to my Google Calendar, so that when I do this stupid podcast, I can come back. I see you rocking back and forth like you're in pain. Well, I'm sorry. I'm so good at social media that you can't process it. Why don't you groan some more?
Are you done?
You sound like a monster.
Oh, it is Shocktober.
I actually just came. It's not that. I actually just came from a dinner party where I helped assemble and make a bruschetta, which is Italian for bruschetta. And over the weekend, I did not do many exciting things, but I went to a house party, and actually, I was talking about Match.com a bit at this house party.
Did they ask you to bring the alcohol? Is that why?
A couple overheard me.
Because they couldn't buy it?
A couple overheard me. No, this was like mid-20s people. A couple overheard me, and this girl was like, "Oh my gosh, my fiance and we met on Match.com," and they started talking about how they met on Match.com. So, success story remix at the party.
Jason Derulo.
It wasn't a remix, so that happened.
That's where you come in and sing your name as Jason Derulo.
So also, okay, this is also relevant to you. So, so you're a big horror movie fan, right?
Yeah, I love horror movies. I finally got to watch my first one as well.
You did. So okay, so this is something you should have talked about instead of wedding. Like that was literally what you said. You sounded like a Neanderthal.
I didn't do it over the weekend.
What movie did you? It doesn't. Do I care? I just talked about a dinner party earlier today. Today's Wednesday.
I watched Hellraiser for the first time.
How was that?
Not good.
Really?
Yeah, it was one of those movies where like the practical effects held up, and I love practical effects. I love them. I think they're wonderful.
What do you mean practical effects? Like animatronics?
Non-computer generated effects.
So animatronics.
Sure, but they don't have
animatronics.
It could also be claymation as well. It could be stop motion, that kind of stuff as well. But basically the effects in horror movies that are not computer generated, which most of them are now. So I love practical effects, and they held up totally well. And practical effects tend to do that. Like computer generated effects do not. If you look at old CG, it looks real bad now, right? But the practical effects can hold up, and this one super well done. But the story and just it was badly campy in a bad way. Yeah, it was not good, but it was a fun movie to watch. So I'm glad I did. And I've always kind of been interested in Hellraiser, but it was never like one of those series that I was dying to go through and watch. And I don't know if I want to watch much more of it.
Sure.
There's like not eight. There's like 5 or 6 movies in the franchise, something like that.
So I was with a girl, and she wanted to watch a horror movie. Mm-hmm. And we were looking through Netflix. Now, I do not subscribe to Netflix. She does. And there were several movies we could not get access to. We looked up What Lies Beneath, which she said is very good. That wasn't on there. There were a couple I really wanted to watch, and we looked them up, and they weren't there. I had actually heard that the movie with Megan Fox was not horrible. I don't remember what it's called at all. Jennifer's Body. Have you seen that?
Is that the one where she's like a demon or something?
Yeah.
Nope.
Okay.
It sure looked bad.
Oh, so I read a review on IO9, the science fiction blog, and they said that it was really marketed very, very poorly because horror movies are very popular with females. And this essentially just made it kind of like a sexed up Megan Fox movie, which is not what it was. But by doing that, they alienated like half of their target audience, really, for horror movies. But anyway, I read this years ago. So anyway, I've been curious about seeing Jennifer's Body. That wasn't on Netflix. We couldn't find anything on Netflix. So we ended up watching...
It had nothing to do with Megan Fox. Nothing.
What didn't?
You wanted to see Jennifer's Body.
No, I heard it was good. That's why I wanted to see it.
Okay.
I don't know much about horror movies. That's the thing. Like, I don't know what's good. I don't know what's, like, scary. I don't know what's, like, I don't know what a good...
Who the hell cares what people, like... What's good is what you like.
But I don't know what I like because I don't like horror movies, really. So, Jennifer's Body is the only horror movie I've read an article about ever. So, that is why I wanted to watch
That's the extent of your... I understand. That's the extent of your horror movie knowledge.
That's literally all of my base... All right, so whatever. So, anyway, we came across Carrie, so we watched Carrie.
Mm-hmm. The original, not the remake.
The original. Terrible movie.
That's important.
It's
You're wrong. you're very wrong about that.
What?
It is not a terrible
But
movie.
name one thing that is good about that movie.
The mother is pretty terrifying.
She is terrifying in the last scene.
That is not a terrifying movie, or that's not a bad movie at all. It's a great movie.
Let me put it this way. It's not a good horror movie. It's not scary.
Agreed. I can agree with you
It's
on
a
that.
high school teen drama. It's a high school teen dramedy that becomes a woman's power fantasy because it's about a girl that gets bullied. It's like Mean Girls, only instead of getting revenge by getting whatever, she literally kills people in one scene. But she's the protagonist, so it's not scary. You want the protagonist to kill people. It's like a reverse horror movie.
I think it probably did more for people in the time in which it was created, rather than being viewed now.
I disagree. I think that people have been literally the same throughout time and space.
Hmm. Hmm.
So then last night, we were again at a loss for what to watch and put on Children of the Corn.
That's a really bad. That's not
It's a
that's not the one.
really bad movie.
No, no. So when I said that what matters is what's good to you, I meant everything except that movie.
Yeah, it was
Because that one's real bad.
unwatchably bad.
Yeah, it is. It is. I agree with you. Actually, it is unwatchable. That movie is unwatchable.
It and Carrie are two quote-unquote classics.
I don't think that movie is considered as classic. In
They're
fact,
extremely well known.
okay, so that's a different thing. Carrie is well known, and it is considered a classic. Children of the Corn is well known to be a bad movie.
Is it really? See, I was not aware of this.
No, it has always been considered a bad movie.
Okay, this is why I wanted to watch Jennifer's Body, because it's the one horror movie I'd ever heard anything about.
Yeah, okay.
And the IO9 writer, again, this was years ago, like 2 or 3 years ago, or 5 or 8 or whatever, said that it was a good movie, just marketed poorly. So I would love any suggestions for Netflix movies, but the thing is, I didn't want to be scared to death. See, like,
and you're real scared.
I'm
right?
scareable.
You're real scared.
Like, okay, to give you an example, The Ring and The Grudge destroyed me.
Mm-hmm.
Game over. Like, The Grudge just destroyed me. Also, the person I was with has seen a lot of films, such as Paranormal Activity, which I actually dated a girl who slept with the light on for over a year after seeing that movie. Mm-hmm. No joke. Like, that's how scary it was.
No, that seems totally reasonable.
And I consider also the three original the two classics that I've seen, I consider Halloween and Friday the 13th to be quite scary. Friday the 13th, particularly the kind of jump scare at the end, really, I mean, that destroyed me when I saw it. The rest of it wasn't bad, really, honestly. I got through the rest of it. Halloween, to me, is the scariest movie that there is. I mean,
Michael Myers is pretty awesome.
I'm sure I don't know if you'll disagree, but
I'm not disagreeing that it's. I would disagree that it's the scariest movie I've ever seen, but I agree that it is a classic and an awesome movie. I think it's an awesome movie.
It's a phenomenal scary movie.
Oh, it's great.
Like, listener, if you're with
really good.
If you're with somebody and you want to get real snuggly, Halloween, or I think especially near the end, the original Friday the 13th. I've never seen Nightmare on Elm Street.
That terrified me when I was a child.
And that's
why was I watching that when I was 4 years old? I don't know. 4 might be an exaggeration.
Because you had an older brother.
I think I was 7 or 8.
And older brothers exist to just horrify
to
us.
terrify their younger brothers. No, actually, that's true.
Because that happened with me when I was 3 with Creature of the Black Lagoon.
I could totally see your older brothers doing that to you, actually.
Oh my god! And they weren't even trying; they just watched it all the time. Creature from the Black Lagoon. Oh my gosh, the worst. Anyway, Netflix, I think, has a terrible selection of horror movies. Terrible. Based on the 5 that we looked up. But I'm just saying, I'm not real happy with it right now.
They have honestly, they have some good ones.
Yeah, I'm just probably not aware, but I was disappointed that they were missing the few that I'd heard of.
Mm-hmm.
So there's that. Anyway, happy October, everybody. Clearly, it's October here at Unqualified Gamers. You know, our friend Blake has been doing the video game circuit of games that are relevant to this part of this time of the year. He has already played through some Castlevania games. He played through Symphony of the Night already, because, of course.
That's a one-sitting game.
Oh my God, yeah. I believe maybe some Devil May Cry games. I'm not sure. So if this wasn't such a great month for video game releases, I think I mentioned this last week, I would love to play through Lords of Shadow 2, which I've not played yet. But how about you? Do you have any horror movie, any Halloween-ish games you pull out?
I do, but this October is such a mess with these weddings. Normally my October's a little freer. Like, the game that comes to mind that I would love to start playing every October, which I played last year, was Costume Quest, which is a Double Fine game that is a role-playing game. Have you heard about this? Did you ever hear about this?
You've talked about Double Fine games several times.
Yeah, it's a game called Costume Quest. It's a role-playing game. You play a trick-or-treater who's, if I remember right, it's your younger brother or your sister that gets kidnapped, and you go out to save them, and you do that by trick-or-treating from house to house, and sometimes there are like orcs in the house, and you have to kill them, and you equip yourself with different costumes that give your characters different powers in combat. And it's got an active time battle like Super Mario RPG, very reminiscent of Super Mario RPG. And Costume Quest 2 is actually coming out this year.
Really?
Yeah, and it's super charming. Like, that's its style. It's very charming. To give you like an example of the type of humor and stuff you'll see in there, in Costume Quest 2, there's going to be a costume called Candy Corn, and it's literally going to do nothing.
Okay.
It's just going to tell you facts about corn that may or may not be real.
Wow.
Yeah, because nobody likes candy corn.
You know what? I have gotten in arguments about this on the radio show I produce on WGN Radio, Brian Noonan, the Brian Noonan Show.
Because he's like 85 years old, an old man, and probably likes black licorice too.
He just turned 50, I think, this year, and he loves candy corn.
So the next time that you're on the show, ask him if he also likes black licorice and if I can change his colostomy bag.
Okay, sounds good.
Don't say that, because
we have argued about it on
that's a little aggressive, but do ask if he likes black licorice, because I'm curious. That I am curious about. I'm legitimately curious if he likes black licorice.
And this is very interesting because right now I'm mentioning my radio show on WGN, and last week I mentioned this podcast on WGN.
Way to plug us on national radio.
I know, right? International.
International radio.
Intergalactic.
In fact, if I'm not mistaken, radio waves go out into space.
Time and space, actually.
Mm-hmm. So we're everywhere.
But, yeah, we were talking about pet peeve like phrases and words that people say to sound intelligent, and literally came up.
Candy corn came up?
No, literally came up, which, God, I wish I knew which episode we got into that. Because you told me it was like in the 30s, episode 30-something, you informed me that the dictionary had changed the meaning of the word literally to mean nearly or...
they changed the... Look, well, let's not do it again, but they changed the definition of literally to mean figuratively.
Yes,
is what they did.
Yeah, but so I told him that on the air, and I was like, yeah, my co-host John brought that to my attention like a year ago. So anyway, very meta. But Brian loves candy corn. I know there's got to be a market for it because they sell it all over the place.
No, there's no market for it. It costs less than, I don't know, half of a penny to make.
It costs fewer than half a penny to make.
Yeah, and so because it costs less than half a penny to make, they can just throw it as a mixer in all that crap. Like, have you gotten the candy corn peanut combo bag of snacks?
No. Why?
It's the worst. Can you imagine a worse combination of here's your candy for Halloween, kids, peanuts and candy corn? I
would punch that person in the face.
Way to ruin Halloween.
Yuck. when actually the party I went to Saturday with the people in their mid-20s, not 19 or 20, thank you, I didn't know what to buy at the CVS because they already had spiced cider and some wine selections. So I ended up getting a giant like 40-ounce can of Mountain Dew because apparently they come with that. Because I knew there'd be boxed wine at the party and I would want to mix up some Mountain Dew, which I kind of did. I'll tell you about that in a second. And
I don't really want to know about that.
I ended up getting that, a little thing of whiskey, because like you got to bring a gift kind of, and I bought a 99-cent thing of candy corn. I walked in, I threw it on the table, and Alicia, the girl hosting the party, she just goes, "I really hate candy corn." And I was like, everybody does.
Everybody hates it. So anyway, back to Shocktober gaming.
Sure.
Yeah, so Costume Quest is kind of like, and it's about like 2 to 4 hours, so you can just play through it in one sitting if you want.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, super charming, so I'd love to play that. I'm playing Shadows of Mordor still, and I will continue to play that, and it will probably last me all October, unfortunately, just because I won't have a ton of time to play games. And it's not exactly a scary game, nor does it fit that aesthetic. But that's my like October game. But if I had my choice, like if I could pick a couple of games to play through, I would stick to like the Castlevania series for October, something like that. I would also probably venture into the Resident Evil series.
Oh, Resident Evil, good choice.
Maybe a different year. So like, and survival horror is a genre that I really enjoy, but for some reason they're not like the first games that I pick to play when I have a new game, the ability to play a new game. And I should really start doing that because I really like them. I really do. And I have quite a few of them I have not played.
I have never played a survival horror game.
I believe you.
I have watched our friend John from Russia play several Silent Hill and Resident Evil games.
But Silent Hill's another series I would definitely play the games through again.
See, Silent Hill I would play through because I understand the storylines are quite intense. Doesn't like Silent Hill 3 or 4 have the record for like most depressing ending or something like that? Or most depressing?
I feel like that's not a measurable record.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah, I would agree. The Castlevania games are good. I will say, if I had a PlayStation 4 or Xbox One, or no, PlayStation 4. If I had a PlayStation 4 and a girlfriend, I would replay through The Last of Us. But I will absolutely never, ever play that game alone. Ever. Mm-hmm. Because I scare extraordinarily easily.
You got very scared of it.
I literally did not play it unless my girlfriend at the time was over in my apartment. Period. Yeah. And I gave away the game to our favorite listener at the time, who is still a staunch supporter of us, who we very much appreciate. But I passed on the game his way because I knew that he was interested in playing it, and so I no longer own it. But I would get the remastered copy because good Lord, what a good game, phenomenal game. But in lieu of that, I will maybe pick up a Castlevania game. I'm not sure. I may download/buy one on the 3DS eShop because I've got my 3DS with me. Honestly, you talked about not having much time for games. God, in the last several weeks, I've averaged maybe 8 to 10 hours of video games a week. And this is keeping in mind that I play video games on the train for about 6 hours a week. So
yeah, I mean, I agree with you. Like this past, not to get too deep in my work schedule, but because of what I had to get ready for this trip, I had to work 12 hours on Thursday, 12 hours on Friday, 9 on Saturday and Sunday, and then 7 on Monday and 12 on Tuesday, and we're recording on Wednesday. I mean, when I work 12 hours, there's no time for anything else.
Right? So yeah, exactly.
I've already cut out 3 of those days out of my week of us, with us recording. So we're busy people. It's part of what happens. It's life.
It's wild, and winter is coming. Winter is coming soon, and hopefully we'll hunker down a bit more. I've got so many games, but I would agree. I would go more the Castlevania route. I would say I would actually accept Ninja Gaiden or Ninja Gaiden 2 as an acceptable October horror game, because Near the end, you fight monsters
They
and
have
demons.
werewolves, if I'm not mistaken, right?
They have what?
They've got werewolves, if I'm
I don't
not
know about
mistaken.
werewolves, but by the
I'm,
end, I think you literally go to hell in the last couple chapters of both games.
they definitely have werewolves.
You're definitely fighting like horrible demon monsters at some point that are evil. And the thing about those games are they are so brutally difficult that puts them in the survival horror genre level of difficulty and challenge and
I would
tension.
I would argue it's a different kind of tension in that particular circumstance when the game is just very difficult.
Certainly, yes, but there is a tension.
Right. Because
And I think
I would say that like Castlevania, there's no it's just it's like it thematically
yes,
fits with
Castlevania is
Halloween.
thematic. Survival horror is both thematic and difficult tension. And the
Mhm.
Ninja Gaiden, I think, just fits the tension and a bit of the theme near the end to where I think that it's an acceptable choice. Ninja Gaiden 1 or 2. I don't know about 3 because I never played that game. But the first two, yeah.
I think there's quite a few games that you could pick.
Yeah,
Honestly.
well, I'm picking the best ones. And I would never play Super Ghouls and Ghosts because that game sucks. Now what? Sorry about you.
I
Oh,
don't think
it
that
was such a good game.
I
How many
don't
people beat that
that
game?
game sucks.
When 0.01% of the people
Agreed.
that have ever...
Very few people complete that game. That's a very good game.
That means it's too hard. It's too hard if no one that buys the game can beat
No,
it.
it was made in a period of time where like games needed to be difficult.
No, dude, okay, that's fine. They make it difficult, but games always should be beatable,
People
right?
could complete that game.
I could after
I,
what?
guar- I guarantee you could go on YouTube and find a playthrough of that game of somebody
Yes,
just completing it.
by the one guy in North Dakota that ever beat that game. Everybody else was hunting bears.
Why is he from North Dakota?
Doesn't make any sense. I don't think I could beat that game. And that pisses me off. If you can't beat a game, if the majority of people that play a game can't beat it, it's too hard. Right?
I don't think so.
I think so. What is good about that game? The brutal difficulty that's really, really insanely...
No, it's a fun game to play. It's just hard.
What is fun about it? You run and shoot things? It's Mega Man. Mega Man's a fun game, and you can beat it. Throwing it out there.
No, there's exploration involved in that game. It's a pretty good game.
There's
I
not
could always get to.
exploration.
Yeah, there is. The levels are both vertical and horizontal. There absolutely is, and there are secret chests all over the place.
That's like saying that a person has studied the Kama Sutra because he can be on top and on bottom.
Like at the same time.
Nope. I'm making an analogy. It was brilliant. You're welcome. That'll be $10.
I don't have any money.
Ha! Me neither. So anyway, I wanted to kind of transition from that discussion about our October games into a topic you brought up 2 weeks ago that we never expounded on, and that is comfort games.
Yeah, that was on the podcast that I was by myself. Arguably, actually not arguably, just by definition, the best podcast we've ever done.
Just definitively the best podcast ever recorded.
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I did bring that up. What I was talking about was comfort games, and I brought it up because I downloaded Dragon Quest IV for the iPad, which was really the second Dragon Quest game I was ever exposed to, but the first one that really grabbed me. And we're talking when I was like 8 years old. And it was the prize piece of my video game collection when I was a kid because it was rare, and I actually owned it for the Nintendo Entertainment System. And I downloaded it for the iPad, and like before I knew it, I was 2 chapters in to the game. I had spent like 8 hours playing the game, and I couldn't believe how much I just fell right into it. And I knew everything about the game. I knew everywhere to go. I knew where all of the chests were, but it still was just fun for me. It brought back this like nostalgic, not like just good feeling for me. You know, it brought me back to being in being in my bedroom upstairs in my house in Rockford, sitting on the carpet on a Saturday morning playing video games for like 6 hours, which I used to do when I was a kid. So it was just one of those things, and it's the type of game, and I also cited many of the early Final Fantasy games. It was the type of game for me that like I go back to these games over and over and over and over again, um, and sometimes I don't even know if I'm having fun when I'm playing them, but I'm enjoying the time I'm spending with them when I go back to them over and over again. And it's so weird to me too because like I've got all of these other games that I do want to play. But like there are times where I just want to go back and play like Chrono Trigger again.
Yeah.
And then I do.
And I know you talked about, you mentioned in your solo episode that I would likely have several comfort games, and for me, it's not even necessarily so much the game is like that is. So there are games that I play that I go back to because they're familiar and they're relatively easy, or I've at least gamed the system, or just the kind of thing I can pick up and just like own, you know.
Yeah.
And that's what I was thinking when you were talking comfort games. But when you put it that way, that is when you talk about like actually really transporting your mindset back to when you were a child or when you were a kid. For me, sitting on the floor, our video game cabinet had no chair in front of it. I sat on the floor. It was fine. Sat on the floor.
Of course, we sat on the floor.
Yeah. Playing in the video game cabinet, you know, for me, for that feeling to come back and that nostalgia, for me, no game does that better in the universe than Final Fantasy VI, and that is why I am so obsessed with the concerts, all of the video game music concerts and Final Fantasy concerts, because those are what transport me, because they show footage from the games when they do it, and when I am hearing a live symphony perform the Dream Oath opera, which is one of the greatest moments in video game history, and I'm seeing that footage up there, that transports me back. And that's why generally at the end of at least one piece in all of these concerts, I am reduced to a sobbing mess because it's so overwhelming to me, that unbelievable feeling, because it's so concentrated and so live, and you hear the crowd get excited, and it's like I'm surrounded by people that this is affecting, and it's not just me. So that's why, you always make fun of me for it when we talk about it, but that is why I am obsessed with those video game music concerts. And I have to go, because that's what comes out for me. So I will not miss a video game concert if it comes to town. Unless it's Video Games Live, which I've been there, done that, that's fine or whatever, but the ones that really dig into the music, like Dear Friends and More Friends, and hopefully someday I can see Play and The Legend of Zelda Symphony of the Goddesses. That's what that does. But yeah, in terms of games, Chrono Trigger, really good at that. Final Fantasy VI, really good at that. And then in terms of games I go back to just over and over again, WWF No Mercy. Like, I'm sorry, but it is the greatest wrestling game ever made, period. Except maybe WrestleMania 2000. They're made around the same time, same developer.
They were the same game. I mean,
they're virtually the same game.
They were literally the same game.
Literally, No Mercy added running grapples, and that's about it. They added like 2 different moves you can do, but they are otherwise exactly the same game. For some reason, the internet in general seems to go with WrestleMania 2000 as their favorite. I don't see why, because No Mercy is the same thing, but plus like 2 features. So I'm a No Mercy guy, but whatever. Take your pick. I have an N64 sitting in the drawer underneath my TV with a controller and No Mercy plugged into it. And there are days I will literally just pull it out, plug that sucker in, and just go for a Royal Rumble, just dominate the competition for a while, and that's it. Like, everything about that game is satisfying to me. The sound effects, everything about it is satisfying. And I read Did You Know Gaming? Did You Know Gaming is there's a Tumblr, there's a YouTube channel, it's a video game trivia site. I saw a Did You Know Gaming factoid that said that developers were working on a remake of No Mercy, and they stopped development because the people playing it said that once they got that game, they would never buy another wrestling game. Because there would be no reason, because it was that good. Like, it's that satisfying. And I believe it. I don't know if it's BS or what, but I believe it. So, No Mercy.
I will say that when I'm like, I don't I guess I don't like when I'm talking about being transported back to those times when I was a kid. It doesn't. Um it's not like a physical feeling of that. Like I don't actually like, oh man, I remember being in my room playing this game and this particular boss and the first time I beat it and stuff. It's not like that. It's just like it's like an easy nostalgia. It's just kind of in the back of my mind. It's almost like it's subconscious, the type of
Yeah.
nostalgia
Okay.
I'm talking about.
Okay.
Um, like yours sounds a little more active. Yours sounds like you're able to acknowledge it a little more. And for me, it's
Just the music concerts.
right.
Just the concerts.
And for me, it's not something I acknowledge until after the fact. Like I think about it later, and I'm like, man, like this was a game that I played a lot when I was a kid, and after I got done with my marathon gaming session with Dragon Quest IV, I was like, gosh, that just totally reminded me of when I played through this game for the first time when I was a kid on the floor of my bedroom. So for me, it's again, it's much more like passive. It's much more it's in the back of my head when I'm doing it.
Sure. Yeah. And I would say that's me and No Mercy a little bit. More so, Secret of Mana. That game, because I played that game with you growing up.
Yeah, we did. We played that game quite a bit.
I mean, that game I think is probably the number one comfort. But I don't go back to it. That's the interesting thing, like there are these games that I could go back to and they would give me a certain feeling, but I don't go back to them.
I just don't see that being the same though without playing it with another person. I mean, the reason why that game was so great for us was because that was like the first time that we had this long. We'd always been in role-playing games, and it was the first time that we had this long role-playing game experience that we could enjoy together, right?
Yeah.
Like as a multiplayer experience, which they didn't have those
True.
like up until that point. So it was a totally new thing. It was awesome.
So then we're talking about a couple different things. We've skipped around a little bit in terms
Yeah.
of what you mean by comfort game, really. A
Yeah,
little
I
bit.
guess ultimately what I really just meant was something that you find yourself returning to over and over again in lieu of other games that you may not have played before.
Instead of playing new games. Yep. Okay.
Exactly.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
I mean,
Yeah. Then.
these games don't have to be old and nostalgic. Diablo 3 to me is a comfort game. I will be in my transition period. Like I will finish Shadow of Mordor, and the prospect of starting a new game is oftentimes daunting, at least to me. Mostly because of the time commitment I know I'm going to have to spend to play through an entire game. But Diablo 3 is such a familiar thing to me now because I've played it for so often that I will easily just jump back in there for a couple nights over the next few weeks after that and just play 45 minutes to an hour of that. So I think that comfort games don't have to be it doesn't have to be a nostalgia thing.
Then in that case, No Mercy really is my main comfort game.
It really is the thing you just bust out every once in a while.
That's the one. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't. Well, Star Fox 64. Good Lord, Star Fox 64.
I can totally see that.
Oh my God! In college,
Yeah.
I had friends, and in their suite, in their four-person dorm room, we played that game 3 times a day or more. I mean, it was unreal how much we played that game. God, yeah, that's it. Like when I bust out like a Super Nintendo or an NES game, there aren't a lot of games I just kind of pick up and play. I don't return to the games of my childhood nearly as much as I used to. Like even a fraction as much as I used to.
And that's probably just a product of a decreased amount of time, don't you think?
I think, yeah.
I mean,
but the one that I am compelled to pull out is No Mercy. Like, I will be in my living room and I will just pull it out and just boom, go into No Mercy. But I never, I have my original Xbox here. I never plugged that in ever. I don't even know why I still have it really. My 360, I've turned that on a couple times. Looked at a couple games. A Rock Band, I guess, occasionally. Rock Band.
I think that absolutely fits that particular mold.
Rock Band, absolutely.
Yeah, especially when you've got friends over. I mean, it's a party game, and you don't even have to have friends over. It's something sometimes you just want to veg out and strum on the old guitar.
I bust it out more when I'm alone, and it's if I hear something when I'm out. If I hear, if I hear certain songs, if I hear "Round and Round" by Rat, or if I hear "Green Grass and High Tides" come on Pandora.
I've got to go home and play "Round and Round" by Rat because it's a great song.
Oh, dude, I love that song. "Green Grass and High Tides," or even the Dream Theater song "Panic Attack." Like I love playing. I love that one from Rock Band 2. So Rock Band is definitely a comfort game. I never really pull out my PlayStation anymore, or I never had a PlayStation 2. My PlayStation 3, I don't really turn on and bust out a game to play. Occasionally Symphony of the Night if I have a comfort game I want to play for a long time. But yeah, so I would say No Mercy, Star Fox 64, Rock Band. Occasionally, Symphony of the Night.
Yeah.
If I got some extra time.
When I was, from the age of like maybe 19 to 25 or something, a large chunk of my childhood, I basically missed 85% of the games in that area of time because I was playing World of Warcraft so much. And that was absolutely a comfort game for me, right? Because I would play that game 8 hours a day sometimes. Because I had so little responsibility. I'd play the game for 8 hours a day, 5 days a week.
Yeah, that's
if not more than that, honestly. So like that for sure was a comfort game for me, and is definitely a comfort game for a lot of people. In fact, there are people that don't even consider themselves video gamers. They don't even consider themselves into video games because the only game that they play is World of Warcraft.
Yeah, it's pretty intense.
Yeah. So that was definitely in that vein for me as well.
Yeah. Can't think of any more off the top of my head, but it was still a nice little discussion we had there.
Yeah, no, it's an important point that I wasn't necessarily approaching it, and it ended up kind of going in that direction from the idea of just pure nostalgia. It's the idea for me was more just like something that you are so familiar with that when you are in that transition period, if you are that type of gamer that games that way, that it's the type of game you just will return to again and again and again and again,
And even when you're not in a transition, even if you've got a brand new game to play, or dozens because you have Steam.
Yeah, or you could be in the middle of a game and you're like, I really want to go grind some bounties in Diablo 3.
Yeah, sometimes you have a craving.
Yeah.
And I don't get the craving so much for Star Fox 64 anymore. Rock Band is an occasional thing. I'm really getting what you're saying now. It's a once every for me it's a once every. I don't have any regular comfort games. I don't have any like every couple weeks I'll bust this out or every whatever. My comfort games are much more spaced out. So it's every 3 to 4 to 6 months even, sometimes longer. I will just need to play this game. Or just like have this urge to just be like, I really need to get back to this. And that is very much Rock Band. And that is very much what's the other game I said besides Star Fox and No Mercy? Rock Band.
You said Rock Band, Star Fox, and No Mercy. Those were pretty much the main ones.
Then the ones that I consistently go to every few months are Rock Band for sure, and Civilization.
And that's another great one because like even though the game has legs and you put hours and hours and hours into it, the games are self-contained, right? Like you start a game and you play it through its completion, and the game has an end point, and then to play the game again, you start a new game.
Yeah.
So it totally fits that same bill. Absolutely.
What got you thinking about all this stuff? Just
I think
making conversation?
I was making conversation, and it was I was at that transition point. I was ready for something new to play, but it was the Dragon Quest. It was the Dragon Quest download that got me thinking about it. Because I downloaded it on a whim because I was watching Max one day, and like he was napping, and so I had a half an hour, and like I didn't want to start something new in a half an hour, and Dragon Quest IV had just come out on iOS, and like
Right.
my iPad was next to me, and it was just totally a purchase of opportunity, because like that's what I had next to me. I was sitting there with Max sleeping, and so I downloaded it, and then I just started playing it, and then I just kept playing it, and I like played it the next day, and I played it the next day too, and so that's kind of what got me thinking about it. It's like I was just thinking to myself, how how with like all of this other stuff out there that I haven't played before, is this just like something I'm doing? Like my limited amount of time I have to play video games, why am I investing in this? And I didn't I wouldn't change that. Like I would stick with that because I had a lot of fun doing it.
And you know it's going to be fun. You know exactly what to expect.
I guess maybe that's part of it too. Is maybe that the expect like you don't have the ability to be disappointed with a game that you know everything about.
Yeah, exactly. So that was a fascinating discussion about Halloween and horror games and comfort games and all those things. Um, I have not delved much further into Hyrule Warriors. I will say the difficulty has ramped up ever so slightly to where it's no longer a total pushover, which is nice. But I've only put a couple extra hours into it, and I'm still playing Smash Brothers 3DS, which I'm still loving so much. But I don't have much to say about either of those that I did not say last week. Is there anything you'd like to bring up at this juncture?
Again, the only game I've been playing has been Shadow of Mordor, um, and the occasional League of Legends match still. And Shadow of Mordor, I do still like it, but it does have some issues as most games do, right? It definitely does have some issues. And another issue I'm finding with the game is that it for as like interesting and deep as this Nemesis system that I've talked about is, um, it it is definitely the first iteration of the Nemesis system, because there's some wonky stuff that can happen when you are on a mission that makes it impossible to complete the mission, because the pool of war chiefs that this Nemesis system draws from is about 25 large. And again, the world map is not that large in this game, which I talked about on the last podcast. And there will be times where I'm on a mission, and it doesn't even have to be one of like the kill the main war chief mission. It could just be like a regular mission. There will be times where I'm on the mission, and I will get accosted by one of the head war chiefs and like 6 other chieftains. And each one of these orcs is like a mini boss in itself. That takes a significant amount of power to defeat and technique. And like if you get I would argue probably if you get 3 or more that are of a decent power level, like you don't have a chance to win. And there have been times where I have literally been accosted by like 6 or 7 of them. So it's a no-win situation, and I suppose I need to get better. I need to get better at disengaging, which is something that like I don't do at all in this game. Um, because the majority of the time you're just slaughtering hordes of orcs, right? If you're playing the game well. And so they don't teach you to disengage, but I think that's probably just something I have to get used to doing when I get into a situation like that. But I just think that there are maybe some unfair difficulty spikes in it that it doesn't really prepare you for.
That makes sense. That last sentence you said made sense to me.
actually all of what I said, I think probably makes sense to most people other than you.
Well, I mean, you've talked about the Nemesis system before, but I have not listened to a word that you've said. So
You don't have any idea what it is, do you?
it's the third Resident Evil game, right? Is incorporated into Shadow of Mordor. Is that right? Resident Evil 1, Resident Evil 2, Resident Evil... Yeah, that's right, I think.
Mhm.
Pretty much.
I don't know why I do this. Like, I don't know why I subject myself to this every week.
Well, I beat Classic Mode of Smash Bros. 3DS on the most hardest difficulty. So there you are.
So you're done.
Guess
The game is over. You can shelf it for good.
guess with whom character I did that.
Marth.
Nope.
Olimar.
No.
Bowser.
No, real guesses. Olimar doesn't count. I know Bowser was a real guess, but that... so
Bowser
we'll
was a
say
real
you're
guess. Bowser
say
was a
you-
real guess.
We'll say you're at 2. You got 5 guesses. All right, so you guessed Bowser and Marth.
Wait, Luigi.
Nope.
Peach.
No, I don't do Peach. You got one more
Sheik.
guess.
Sheik.
No! When have I ever played as Sheik?
Oh no, Zelda. You always like Zelda. Zelda.
Yes, but not Zelda. Mega Man.
Oh yeah?
Yeah. I actually could not beat Classic on it's the final boss is a bit of a beast depending on how, you know.
How good you? I mean, you could have just been like better. Like you could have.
Yeah, sure. So there's
You
that.
could have just
Anyway,
tried to be better.
I got to the final boss on. I can get to the final boss on level 9 difficulty with any character that I've played. I mean, I got to the final boss as like Captain Falcon, as Marth, as a Sheik, as Zero Suit Samus, as the frog guy. What the hell's his name? The Greninja or whatever.
Ninja.
Ness. I mean, like you name it. Like I got to the final boss with a lot of guys, but no dice. But Mega Man, I somehow pulled it out. So there you go. Pulled it out.
Always good. It's always good to pull out.
Yep. So there's that.
Always.
But it's fun. It's fun. There's definitely some character rebalancing in this game that's very interesting. We posted a link on our Google Plus page to a Mashable article with some pro Smash players' initial opinions of the game. Seems that Bowser is actually firmly ensconced in the top tier of characters, which is nice for me because I've always been a Bowser player, so that's kind of nice.
He's just so big. He has
correct.
to be good. He's so
But
big.
But overall, there is a pretty decent consensus that this is a much more well-balanced game. And that they're saying that while there are still kind of some top tiers, the tiers of characters are not, there's not a huge disparate amount. So a third or even fourth tier character could win a tournament if a person is good enough with them. So that's pretty cool. That's very cool. Good on Nintendo for
Yeah, now the question is Nintendo going to cater to that crowd, right?
like allow them to have tournaments, etc.
Just cater to them in general. Like Capcom specifically made, like they are on record talking about how they made Street Fighter to be a event-worthy fighting game with the way that they balanced it.
Sure.
Right? Like League of Legends balances characters in a way to make them for professional type play. We'll see if Nintendo chooses to go that route. They don't have to. There's no reason why they need to. They don't get anything extra out of it. We'll just see if they choose to go that way.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, obviously they paid.
Because they've always talked about Smash as something where like they didn't care if it was that or not. They thought it was cool that people did it, but they didn't make the game with that intention.
Absolutely. I mean, I would presume based on the addition of For Glory
Or
and
Glory mode.
you know, For Glory or whatever, which is the mode where there's no items.
And it's like you can only pick Fox.
Yeah, pretty much.
And
More
it's
straightforward.
And it's on Final Destination.
Yeah, Fox is no longer top tier, thankfully, so that trope is gonna die. But that's whatever. But yeah, I think there's a catering degree for sure, just based on the focus on balance and removing some of the more random elements that people complained about in Brawl, like tripping. So I know some of it's there. You know, you're right. We'll see to the extent or whatever. But I don't know. I'm having fun with it either way. Looking forward to the Wii U version release as well. So there's that. But that's it. So not a whole lot of new stuff, but hopefully, listener, you enjoyed this episode of us kind of ranting about Halloween a little bit. talking about horror movies, horror games.
I'll be bringing my 3DS, but I don't really have anything to play. Maybe I'll pick something up, but I'll be bringing my 3DS on the trip because I'm going to be on a road trip, so why wouldn't I?
You can play Bravely Default.
Got so little desire to do that.
How about Bravely Smash Brothers 3DS?
That might be a good one to play.
The menu music, dude, is so good. Have you heard it? It's so good.
No, that sounds like some menu music.
Dude, it's so good. It's so epic. Do you hear it?
Hang on. No.
I'm just saying. It is really good menu music. That's all I'm saying. It's really good menu music.
Did I tell you about these almonds that I ate over the weekend?